Hasn't even been 24 hours, but Kash Patel's testimony on Capitol Hill yesterday is already raising major alarm bells over whether or not the director of the FBI was telling the truth to Congress, not just about the news accounts of his excessive drinking on the job, the administration of polygraph tests at the FBI, or of firing agents for political reasons, but also about the very statistics that he relied upon to defend his job amid all those embarrassing headlines. According to brand new exclusive reporting from our colleagues Carol Leonnig and Ken Delanian, when it comes to the arrests Kash Patel boasted about yesterday, quote, Patel's FBI has imposed new policies that inflate these numbers and overstate the FBI's progress in stemming crime. That is according to a half dozen law enforcement sources with knowledge of the changes. Kash Patel's lack of transparency is even causing some from inside the FBI to speak out.
What does it take for the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the most powerful domestic law enforcement agency on the planet, to lie to the United States Congress? And what happens when the people inside that very bureau decide they have had enough of watching him do it? Less than 24 hours ago, Kash Patel walked into a United States Senate hearing room, lifted a large black placard covered in statistics high above his head, and dared every senator in that chamber to dispute him.
With one current official telling MS Now this, quote, they are absolutely padding the stats and claiming arrests they would not have claimed. And one former official adds this, quote, agents inside the Bureau complained frequently about Patel's bogus arrest numbers. Kash is definitely engineering things to pad his stats, the former official said. Here is what Kash Patel said yesterday before Congress.
We've arrested 8 of the top 10 most wanted fugitives in the world in 14 months. That's twice as many in the 4 years combined. That is what the men and women of the FBI are doing, well-resourced. Everyone should take a look at this. If people want to continue the baseless, fraudulent, false personal attacks at me, that's great.
He said the FBI under his leadership had arrested 45,000 violent offenders. He said his bureau had captured 8 of the 10 most wanted fugitives in the world in 14 months. Twice as many as the entire 4 years of the previous administration combined. He looked directly at the cameras and said, the mission has never been better. Today, within one single news cycle, every one of those numbers has been exposed, not contested, not questioned, exposed by 6 current and former law enforcement sources, including a current FBI official speaking on the record to reporters at enormous personal risk, because they believe the American public deserves to know what is happening to their bureau.
On it. You know, my colleague Ken Delaney and I have been working on this for a little while, and then we'd been hearing tips for some time that the statistics that Kash Patel sometimes mentioned, they said were juiced or inflated unfairly and intentionally. And while we were working on this, Kash Patel is brought before the Senate to answer questions. And instead of answering those blistering questions, he waves a black placard in the air and says, this is the proof that I'm really running this agency quite well.
Tonight on Daily News Grid, we go through every claim, every manipulated statistic, every corrupted program, one by one, because precision matters, because the Federal Bureau of Investigation matters, and because a man who would lie about the numbers of criminals taken off your streets is a man who would lie about anything. This is what we know. This is what the sources inside the FBI are saying, and this is why it matters to every American watching right now. Here is what yesterday looked like from inside that Senate hearing room. Kash Patel, the current director of the FBI, arrived not to answer questions but to deflect them. He had spent weeks in the headlines, reports of excessive drinking on the job, missed briefings, erratic behavior, polygraph tests administered to his own agents, agents fired for political reasons.
Morale has never been better. When I go across the country and I talk to the line agents and the intelligence analysts and professional staff, I travel around the country, I talk to our state and local partners, they tell me one thing resoundingly: we're finally going to do the work that we were asked to do with the resources that we needed to get the job done. And that's what this administration is focused on. And that's why you're seeing the results that we talked about.
The questions from senators were described by those present as blistering. And what did Kash Patel do? He reached for a prop, a large black placard. He waved it in the air. He cited statistics, and he said this: the mission has never been better. That is what Kash Patel told the United States Senate. That is what he told the American people. And at that precise moment, according to investigative reporters Carol Leonig and Ken Delanian, whose bylines now sit atop one of the most important pieces of accountability journalism produced about this FBI in years, at that precise moment, their sources inside the Bureau had already been telling them for weeks that those numbers were, in the words of one current official, bogus. It is worth pausing here to appreciate what Kash Patel was doing in that hearing room. He was not merely defending himself against personal allegations.
By him just saying there, 45,000 arrests. Now, if you're going to count every arrest where one FBI agent goes with one of the masked ICE teams to pick up as many immigrants, many of whom are lawfully here, to try to deport them, yeah, your numbers are going to go way up because they are arresting tens and hundreds of thousands. But if you actually are just focused on the work that you're doing, then you won't have that. And that makes a huge difference as he's talking about his job. The other thing I'll add, homicide is a state crime.
He was not disputing the reporting about his drinking or his management style. He was standing before a co-equal branch of the United States government, invoking the institutional credibility of the FBI, using its name, its mission, its reputation, and he was using manipulated numbers to do it. That distinction matters, and we are going to spend the next several minutes explaining precisely what those numbers were, how they were manufactured, and why the people still inside the Bureau are choosing to speak out now, even knowing the professional consequences that may follow. Let us start with the 45,000. That is the number Kash Patel cited before the Senate. 45,000 violent offenders arrested under his leadership. It is a dramatic figure. It is meant to be dramatic, and it is built on a foundation that his own agents describe as deliberately dishonest.
There are murder charges, of course, that are connected to other federal crimes. But if the murder rate is down, that is because of local police. It is not because of federal law enforcement. What I would like to know is, what about the public corruption cases? What about the terrorism cases? What about international narcotics trafficking? What about child and sex trafficking? I'd like to know about the bread and butter of what the FBI used to do and how those statistics compare to what's going on over the last year and a half.
Here is what actually happened. At Kash Patel's direction, the FBI quietly rewrote its own internal policy on what counts as an FBI arrest. Under the previous standard, the standard that existed for years before Patel took the director's chair, an arrest was counted as an FBI arrest when the FBI led the investigation, built the case, and executed the operation. The FBI agent had to be the primary arresting authority. Under Patel's new policy, that standard no longer applies. Under the new policy, if an FBI agent is anywhere near an arrest, present at the scene, assisting in a supporting role, riding alongside another agency, that arrest gets counted as an FBI arrest. Even if the FBI did not lead the investigation, even if the FBI did not build the case, even if the FBI agent never put a single pair of handcuffs on a single person. Now apply that policy to what happened beginning in late 2025. Thousands of FBI agents were deployed, ordered at the direction of White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller to join immigration enforcement teams. Massive coordinated sweeps, city after city, Minneapolis, Memphis, dozens of communities across the country. FBI agents went along. ICE officers led the operations. ICE officers made the arrests. ICE officers detained the individuals. And every single one of those arrests made by ICE, not the FBI, was counted in Kash Patel's FBI arrest statistics. That is where the doubling came from. No more criminals taken off American streets. No more investigations closed. No more victims were protected. A policy change. A policy change that moved numbers from one column to another and then let Kash Patel stand in the United States Senate and wave a placard about it. One current FBI official speaking on the record to reporters, and I want to emphasize those words, on the record, with their name attached, knowing the professional risk involved, said this: "They are absolutely padding the stats and claiming arrests they would not have claimed." A former FBI official added agents inside the Bureau complained frequently about Patel's bogus arrest numbers. Kash is definitely engineering things to pad his stats. Engineering. That is the word a former FBI official chose. Not miscounting, not misinterpreting. Engineering. There is an intentionality to that word, a calculation, a deliberate construction of a false picture presented as truth before the United States Congress. If the arrest number manipulation is the first pillar of what Kash Patel constructed in that Senate chamber. The second is arguably worse because it is not simply dishonest. It is an active corruption of one of American law enforcement's most recognizable, most historically significant, and most trusted programs. The FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. You know it. Your parents knew it. It has existed for decades. The concept is simple and powerful. These are the 10 most dangerous fugitives in the world, the ones the Bureau has been hunting sometimes for years and cannot yet capture. Getting onto that list signals something. It means the full weight of the Federal Bureau of Investigation is now formally, publicly, institutionally committed to finding you. Or at least that is what it used to mean. Kash Patel told the Senate that his FBI had arrested 8 of the 10 most wanted fugitives in the world in 14 months. Twice as many, he said, as the entire Biden administration managed in 4 years. He said it with pride. He said it with authority. He used it as proof that the mission was performing at a historic level. Here is what the reporting found. Of those 8 fugitives Patel claimed as captures, 4 were added to the most wanted list within 1 month of their arrest. Not 1 year before, not 6 months, 1 month. 2 of the 8 were added within 24 hours of being captured. And 1 was added to the most wanted list and captured in 1 hour and 13 minutes. 1 hour and 13 minutes. Let me be precise about what that means, because law enforcement professionals with decades of experience told reporters exactly what it means. Operations to seize dangerous fugitives do not happen in 1 hour and 13 minutes. You do not identify a target, build a case, secure surveillance, coordinate a capture team across multiple agencies, obtain whatever legal authorities may be required, and execute a safe and successful arrest in the time it takes to watch a movie. What you can do in 1 hour and 13 minutes is add a name to a list that you already know you are about to cross off, and then hold a press conference about it. That is what happened. The sources who spoke to reporters said what any reasonable person looking at this pattern would conclude. These additions were made strictly to improve Patel's statistics. Nominations were going in for people they were about to arrest, people they had solid information on and could effect the arrest on quickly. The most wanted list was not being used to hunt dangerous criminals. It was being used to manufacture a number for a Senate hearing. Joining me now is the senior investigative reporter whose byline sits atop this reporting, Carol Leonig. Carol, walk us through what you and your colleague Ken Delanian found and why this reporting came together the way it did. Let me make sure we are precise about each of the 2 ways the numbers are being inflated. The first, the FBI is counting arrests made by other agencies simply because an FBI agent was present. Is that right? And the second, the most wanted manipulation, which you described as feeling deeply deliberate. The Bureau knew it was closing in on someone, added them to the list, and then captured them within hours or days. Carol, what is the significance of a current FBI official speaking on the record here? That is an extraordinary step for someone still inside the Bureau. Joining me now is former Assistant Special Agent in Charge at the FBI, National Security and Intelligence Analyst Michael Feinberg. Michael, you have spent a career inside this institution. When you read this reporting, when you see what is being described, what is your reaction? Still at the FBI, or who has recently left it, that has the slightest iota of respect for Kash Patel. He is widely viewed as a clown within the organization, but he's a clown with a flamethrower. And a clown with a flamethrower can still do a lot of damage. And he has, to the individual lives of agents he's fired for political reasons, to the programs he has deprioritized in favor of immigration priorities, and just to the institution itself with the manipulation of statistics, as Carol and Ken have shown. But we can't put all the blame on Kash Patel. I'd be remiss if I did not point out that this is also a failure of oversight. At every hearing where he has struggled to defend himself and distract from the various allegations against his integrity and character and situational judgment, I want to raise the claims Patel made about violent crime, murder rates dropping, violent crime being stopped. He uses these statistics as proof of his leadership. But you have been pointing out something I want our viewers to hear clearly. The statistics are not the only front on which Kash Patel's credibility has come under fire. They are the most measurable, the most documentable, but they are part of a much wider picture that current officials inside the FBI are painting for reporters who are willing to listen. There are the drinking allegations. Reporting found that Patel had become known inside the Bureau for excessive drinking, for missed briefings, for unexplained absences, for erratic behavior that raised concerns among national security officials about potential foreign coercion vulnerabilities. Patel filed a $250 million defamation lawsuit in response. Within days of filing that lawsuit, he publicly confirmed he had been arrested twice in his youth, once for public intoxication, once for public urination, in a letter he had written to the Florida bar. His own lawsuit handed reporters another chapter of the story. There are reports of polygraph tests administered to FBI agents, tests that agents and former officials have characterized as loyalty screenings, instruments of political intimidation, rather than legitimate counterintelligence tools. There are the reports of agents fired for political reasons, career law enforcement professionals who built cases and ran operations and dedicated decades to the Bureau, removed because of their perceived political affiliations or past conduct that someone decided was incompatible with the new direction of the FBI. All of this is the context in which yesterday's Senate hearing took place. And all of it is the context in which Kash Patel chose not to answer questions but to wave a placard. That is a choice. And it is a choice that tells you something about a man's relationship with the truth. Before we close tonight, I want to say something about the people who are not in this story, or rather who are in this story in a way that does not get enough attention. The men and women of the Federal Bureau of Investigation are still showing up right now, tonight, while this broadcast is on the air. They are working their cases. They are building their investigations. They are protecting witnesses. They are making victims whole. They are doing the work of federal law enforcement. That has nothing to do with immigration sweeps or political enemies lists or Senate placards or a director's approval ratings. They do not care about statistics. They never have. The only people who care about statistics like the ones Kash Patel waved before the Senate are people who have nothing real to show for their time in the job. And the people inside that bureau who chose to speak to reporters this week, who put their names on the record, who knew exactly what the consequences of doing so might be, did so because they believe the American public deserves to know what is happening to their institution. That takes a specific kind of courage, the kind that does not come from press releases or placards, the kind that comes from actually caring about the mission. We owe them our attention. Here's what we know tonight. And I want to be precise because precision is what this story demands and what Kash Patel counted on us not to apply. Kash Patel testified before the United States Senate. He cited an arrest figure of 45,000 violent offenders. That figure is only possible because he rewrote the FBI's own internal policy to count arrests made by other agencies, by ICE, by local police, whenever an FBI agent happened to be present. The doubling he boasted about came from a policy change, not from more criminals off the streets. He cited captures from the FBI's most wanted list. Of the 8 he claimed, 4 were added to the list within 1 month of capture, 2 within 24 hours. 1 was added and arrested in 73 minutes. Law enforcement professionals say operations like that do not happen in 73 minutes. What you can do in 73 minutes is move a name onto a list and schedule a press conference. He spoke about violent crime, murder, rape, robbery, crimes that are state offenses over which the FBI does not have primary jurisdiction. He took credit from the state and local law enforcement agencies that actually did that work. And through all of it, through the fabricated numbers, through the manipulated most wanted list, through the polygraph screenings, through the drinking allegations, through the defamation lawsuit, current officials inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation went to reporters on the record and said, "This is not true, this is not what we are, and you deserve to know." Kash Patel lied to Congress. That is not an accusation. That is what 6 law enforcement sources, including a current FBI official, are telling reporters. And the question that now belongs to the United States Senate, to the Department of Justice, and to the American public is a simple one. What happens next? We will keep watching. We will keep reporting. And on Daily News Grid, we will keep telling you what we know. I am William Smith. Thank you for watching. Please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. We'll see you in our next video.